My name's Jim, and I come from a family who, by all accounts, tried to keep a very tumultuous and a very complicated time in my life together. There was a lot of dysfunction that was swept under the rug, and when I was about 13 years old, I realized the extent of the problems that my parents had experienced in their childhood and that they brought into their marriage. So, but by all accounts, I had everything I needed as a child. I grew up in a popular environment with people who, wonderful friends, and my family really tried to keep things together, but there was a lot of dysfunction. But in my high school years, I moved from a very volatile situation with my parents and ended up with my grandparents. And finally, there was some stability in my life. There was a husband and wife, and attending church, and God was really pursuing me back then. And I remember going to Christmas Eve services with my grandparents and being around Christians. And then some Christian students started to come into my life at that point, but I wanted nothing to do with them because I didn't really want to be labeled as a weak person. I mean, so I ran from God. I ran into the party scene, and I really messed up a lot of things for myself as a result. I thought I was taking care of my life, and I was accomplishing things on my own. So I kept God in my back pocket. I believed that He existed. I even knew the story of the gospel, but I kept God as this figurehead that I would call on once in a while when I got into pickles, if you will. Yeah, but as far as having a relationship with Him, I was in control of my life, so there was no relationship there. I came to know Christ in 1995 as a result of a meeting with some Christian men who I started to work for. And it was an interesting situation because I was invited to their church a couple of times. I didn't accept the invitation, but then I started to notice things about these guys that I just had never really noticed about other Christians, especially men. I mean, these guys loved their wives, they poured into their kids, and the work that we were doing was just secondary to them. And there was something about these guys that I later found out was Jesus. And after a while, I realized that these gentlemen were pouring into me. And I didn't realize it at first, but then that led to a meeting in an office before a morning meeting where I accepted Christ. And right there in the office, I was saved. I think it was November 1995. But there was one thing that I knew that had to happen first, and he made that very clear, that he needed me to heal from my past, from my childhood. There were things that I was bringing into adulthood that were very damaging, and they were hurting relationships I had with other people. And I knew I was forgiven for the sins that I committed, but God really wanted me to unravel that. He wanted to unravel that in me and make me a new person, and I was very afraid of that. And at that time, I was able to plug into a church, a local church, and I finally found a church home, and we were just a real tight-knit group of friends in an adult Sunday school class. And on the outside, I was just this happy Christian man growing in my faith, and I was really trying to do that. But the more I got plugged in, the more I got involved in people's lives at church, the more God was exposing some of these problems, and that really scared me. And I just didn't want to know, I didn't want anybody else to know how broken I really was, because I just didn't want to relive the things that I experienced as a child. And as a child, I was taught to just avoid that, stuff those emotions, it's over with it, and there's nothing anybody can do about it. Well, I found out in a very powerful way that there is something someone can do about it, and God wanted to do that for me. But I pushed against it, and some tragic things ended up happening as a result. I knew exactly what God wanted me to do, and that was just totally surrender everything to Him, no matter what. And I was so afraid that He would put me in this dark, lonely place. And I ended up losing everything twice in my life. The third time, I was left with a car full of clothes and a dog. And luckily, I had some income coming in. And I did land somewhere for some temporary housing. But it was that dark, lonely place that I always thought God was going to put me. I feared God was going to put me. And I started to realize that there were so many people that were concerned about me, and not just because they wanted to hang out with me or wanted to be involved in my life. They were truly concerned about my salvation, and some of these people were people that I just rejected and stiff-armed while I was going through this journey of sin, and they never gave up on me. And that led to a phone call from Pastor John Dirks. And as the phone call started out, John wanted to first make sure that I understood the gospel and that I was a Christian, because I claimed to be one. And when I think he realized that I was saved, he started to really challenge me and really make me aware that when Christians sin willingly, they go into sinful situations, the consequences and the outcome can be very, very painful, even more painful than they would be for someone who was a non-believer. And that really struck me just very powerfully. And I also realized that all God wanted from me was to fall into his arms. And that was, I think, a Wednesday, and I came to Harvest that Sunday, and I've never left. I'm in a healthy marriage now, and there's things about my life that I just never thought were possible. I thought I was just destined for failure, and there are things now that God has given me incrementally for his reasons. His timing is impeccable, and I just can't imagine, I couldn't imagine even 5 or 6 years ago that there would be so much joy among so many broken people. After running from God for quite a long time, I can be sure that he is exactly who he said he is, who he says he is, and that he is, he loves us so much that we can't even realize that. I know we say we love our kids, we love our spouses, and we love movies, but we can't even imagine the depths of how God loves us, and that's the most important thing. So if anybody's broken, you're not broken to the point that God can't fix it. And he's faithful, and although he may lead us through uncertain times, he's perfect.